Illegally Deaf is a podcast about overcoming obstacles. I'm Danny Burnside, and just this year, I was diagnosed with severe hearing loss. Oh, did I mention I'm a professional Hollywood voice actor? Funny how that goes. I've made the decision to own my disability and interview remarkable guests who are thriving in light of being disabled. Welcome to the Illegally Deaf podcast. Lee, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Really nice to speak to you, brother.
Yeah, nice to speak to you as well. Thank you so much for reaching out and for thinking of me. I appreciate it.
I had no clue you are such a master of all things Broadway.
Yeah, I am a very big Broadway fan.
Love
I'm
it,
like that
Lee.
quintessential theater kid, you know?
Oh my gosh, I love it. What show got you into Broadway?
So the first show that I ever saw was Annie. That's what kind of got me like the theater bug. I mean, in elementary school, in first grade, I remember I was a tree in a play. I had like 2 lines or something, and it was great. And then my mom started taking me to theater. So Annie was the first show I saw at my community theater. And from then on, the rest was like history, you know?
Was that production of Annie a musical or was it a straight show?
It was a musical. And so funny story about that too. So like I was really obsessed with like the 1982 like Carol Burnett movie.
Love it.
To the point where I got one of my friends together to do a car wash one day because I'm like, I really want this VHS when, you know, VHS was a thing. Got my friend to do a car wash. This was when I was in like 2nd or 3rd grade. And by the end of the day, we got enough money that I could go to Target and I was able to purchase the video.
Through the car wash?
Through the car wash, yeah.
Hilarious. That is amazing. What are you guys raising money for? Oh, to buy Annie.
Yeah, right. It's like that, you know, probably not something that car wash people hear every day.
So I had a younger sister too. So we had Annie on also VHS all the time. I've seen that movie so many times. I can't even count.
Oh, nice, nice. And from what I understand, you've done a lot of theater yourself, right?
I almost was going to go into musical theater. Like I actually started, Lee, doing the musical theater conservatory program at the University of Miami. But I kind of decided to transfer out of that after 1 year into more of like a straight theater program. But I started out in a musical theater program.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Do you have favorite musicals?
So funny because I was literally going to ask you the same thing because I believe you're a little bit younger than me. So I think it's really interesting to talk about like what show got you into it. You know, like for me, I think it has to be as cliche as it may sound, but for my generation, it was Rent. Rent was like the gateway drug of musicals that opened the door to musicals to a lot of people that wouldn't be interested in musicals otherwise. You know what I'm saying?
I totally understand that. Is that so? Rent, I've actually seen the Broadway, like, I mean, I've seen regional productions too, but the Broadway tour production of that, I've seen it like 15 times probably.
Jeez, that's awesome.
And I'm that guy, so you probably know about this. They had like the Rent Rush thing where like,
yeah, I know it.
You went out and you waited, you know, all day. And if you're there for, you know, first come, first serve, but you get $20 front row tickets.
Unreal.
2 hours before the show. So there were so many days where I went out to like our whatever touring house that was stopping at near me. I'd go out at like 6 a.m. or whatever and just wait out there all day.
That's awesome.
Guarantee that I could get the seats for, you know, cheap. But I probably did that like 7 or 8 times.
Love it. I first saw the touring production of Rent actually in Orange County. This was years ago. This was like maybe 2001. I don't know, 2002. And I saw
2003, I think. Right?
Okay. So maybe 2003, right? I actually did see it on Broadway in like, I'm just going to throw out a number, 2010. I'm just throwing out a number. Who knows if that's right or not?
If that's the case, get this. So your mark in 2003, if that, because I saw I saw it in Costa Mesa in 2003, would have been Andy Meeks. Okay. And if you saw it in 2010, you probably saw Adam Chandler Bure as Mark then. And I'm trying, like, I'm a nerd. So I'll
Dude, you know your stuff, man. I love it. You know your stuff.
And I've seen Wicked 19 times.
Wow. You've seen Wicked more than any other show?
Yeah, that's the show that I've seen the most in terms of actual, like, Broadway production. Like, if we're going, like, wider, you know, I've probably seen 30 or more different productions of The Sound of Music, 25 or more productions of Into the Woods, like 20 plus productions of Next to Normal. So it's like, yeah, I mean, wherever there's theater, I'll be there. Here's the thing too, is like for me, I mean I can sing and I've done musical theater before, but I know that there's people that can sing and dance circles around me. And so I'm realistic about that. So when I pursue theater as an actor, I do straight plays as an actor. Now, as a director, I have directed musical theater before, but as an actor, I'm very much a straight play sort of person.
It's amazing. Okay, Lee, let's get into this. I want to introduce you really quick. I can't even believe that you've directed shows too. So very cool. Let's get into all that. So, guys, very pleased to speak to my guest today, who is a visually impaired, as he said, actor, director, writer, and producer. He was born with glaucoma in South Korea, came over to the U.S. as an infant, where he was adopted by a single mother. He's always been passionate about theater, arts, and storytelling. Some of the challenges he's had to overcome include the death of his single mother, his own vision loss, and battles with depression and suicidal attempts. He grew up in Idaho and went to college in Orange County. Funny, we were just talking about Orange County, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in theater. After college, he moved to Los Angeles to pursue work in the entertainment industry, and he says it's been a journey to get to a place of confidence and learning to embrace who he is fully. I think that's a really cool line, Lee. I really do. Something about that last line. Right when I read it, I just liked it. It's very deep and very honest. It's been a journey to get to a place of confidence and learning to embrace who he is fully. Beautifully written, Lee.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I mean, I think for all of us, I think that's always the challenge, right? Is to just get to a place where we can be confident in who we are in the midst of any quote unquote shortcomings or things that we might see as impairments, but realizing that that just makes us who we are. And so it's taken me a while to get there. I haven't fully arrived yet. But that's kind of what I strive for now. But that definitely came with a lot of highs and lows, I would say.
And I may as well say your name, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Pugsley. Welcome to the show, Lee.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I love your last name too.
It kind of flows well, right?
It
It's like
does.
a sandwich. It's like Lee, and then the Pugs is in the middle, and then Lee. You know.
I don't know if you just said it's a palindrome, but if you did not, then yes, it's a palindrome.
I'll take it.
Okay, Lee. So I would love to chat with you about your childhood. Because were you always this artistic? Like growing up, were you an artist already? When did you find yourself being attracted to the performing arts?
So it's so interesting because I was always attracted to storytelling and creative things. Maybe my gateway into theater was Disney. So when I was younger, my dream was to be a Disney animator. And I grew up during like the Disney Renaissance era. So Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, Pocahontas, and so on and so forth. Those were my movies. And I used to watch those movies over and over and over again. I collected all of the Happy Meal toys. I had all the books and everything, and I would have those Disney figurines. So I was an only child as well. So I would like do stories with these like Disney figurines and put them in different scenarios. And I even make like backdrops and stuff out of fabric and other like little pieces of cardboard and stuff, and kind of like make a little stage for them and put them on a stage. And I would like have my lamp shining down, and there would be like a light on them. And then my dream when I was younger, when my vision was better, was to be a Disney animator. So I spent so much time teaching myself how to draw Disney characters. I would first start off by tracing them so I could get the feel of them. And then I would, draw them line by line, freehand on a separate piece of paper.
Okay, you mentioned a time when your vision was better, kind of like in your childhood. Can you give us an idea of that timeline? Like how was your vision when you were a kid? How was it when you were a teenager? How is it now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was born with glaucoma, as you had mentioned previously. And when I was a kid, up until the middle of college, my vision was pretty good in terms of I didn't need a cane. I could read regular print. On occasion, I would use a magnifying glass. I didn't really need a lot of extra visual aid. Sometimes in like school, for example, I would ask the teacher to give me the notes or copies of the notes that were on like the overhead projector or the whiteboard. And that was really the only accommodation I needed. Maybe on occasion, I would get something blown up into larger print. But, in terms of mobility and what I was able to do, I could get around very easily by myself, daytime or nighttime. I didn't really need any assistance. I worked fast food during high school. I could operate cash registers. I worked in call centers and I could read everything regular print. Middle of college, I lost the vision in my right eye. My left eye has always been my stronger eye. So even though I'd lost the vision in my right eye, I could still function almost at the same level with just my left eye. Right after I graduated college, the vision in my left eye took a turn for the worst. And I woke up one day and probably 50% of my vision was gone. It just kind of went very suddenly. I had to go through the whole journey, like we were saying before, of learning how to embrace who I am fully, understanding what my needs were in a very different state of vision as well, figuring out what accommodations I needed, accepting help from people, all of those things that I was not used to and initially rejected the ideas of. So, to bring you up to speed, now I have partial vision in my left eye. I can read regular print with I can read print with my closed circuit television, which is like a little monitor on top, and there's a screen underneath it. And you put the printed material underneath it, you can blow it up really big. But if I'm just out and about, I can't really read print anymore. I do carry a magnifying glass with me sometimes, and now I use a cane as well, which I hadn't done until after I graduated college.
Is glaucoma progressive?
Glaucoma is progressive. At the current state that I'm at, the doctors are pretty hopeful that I should be able to maintain the vision that I have right now. But there is no guarantee of that. And by nature, glaucoma is progressive and it does take away vision more and more. So I have had to come to the point of realizing that there could be changes in the future. And I need to be mentally and emotionally prepared for that if that were to happen. Yeah, I guess that's the short answer with that. And currently, to my knowledge, there are no treatments to restore vision that was lost due to glaucoma.
And yet, here you are in Los Angeles, directing, writing, producing, and starring in films and whatnot. I mean, that's amazingly.
I appreciate that. Like I said, it's been a lot of perseverance that it's taken to push through and to not give up, because there's definitely been so many times where I've just been like, why am I doing this? What's the point of this?
Talk to us about this Easterseals Disability Film Challenge project that you just worked on, audio description.
To give some context, the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge is a film challenge that is done every year. I think we're on the 11th year right now. It's a film challenge that gives filmmakers an opportunity to collaborate with other people to tell unique stories about disability in all its various forms. So you get a wide gamut of stories about, people, in wheelchairs, or the deaf community, or neurodivergence, and, blind and low vision as well. The challenge is to make a short film in 5 days from start to finish. You can't cheat. You start filming, you start figuring out, like what you're going to do, and then you have to film it within 5 days and complete everything in post as well, including like the sound mixing, the sound editing, the coloration, all of that. The project that I did this year is called Audio Description. And for context, what audio description is it's a narration track that describes the action that's going on in a scene, whether it's a film or TV, during silent moments where there is no dialogue. So for me, as a visually impaired viewer of media, audio description is significantly helpful to me understanding what's going on and to make sure that I get the full picture of everything happening on screen. It gives me a much more complete experience.
You only had 5 days to do the entire project start to finish?
Yeah, it was a lot of work in a very compressed amount of time, I would say. Did enjoy it, and I feel like I would be willing to do it again on a bigger project at some point.
After a good nap and a good meal.
After a good nap and a good meal, definitely. Maybe multiple naps, too.
Let's just rewind way, way, way back. You were just in South Korea for the first couple months. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I came over to the US when I was a year old, and I came over on a program called Heal the Children that was bringing over infants with disabilities to the United States to get medical treatment. And then I stayed in foster homes till I was 3. So, in terms of anything related to South Korea, I don't have any memories of that. I haven't been back there, and I don't know anything at all about my biological parents.
So, how did you end up in Idaho?
That's a really excellent question. I guess it was, I don't exactly know the back history of what brought me there, but I believe when I came over to the US, where I got medical treatment was somewhere in the Pacific Northwest area, Idaho or Washington, I believe. And so from there, it just seemed natural, I guess, that if I needed a place to stay, that they would be searching for foster families in that area. I was adopted by a single mother. So growing up until my teenage years, it was just me and my mom, and she was never married. So I didn't have a father, I didn't have any other siblings. My mom found me at a foster home in Idaho. She adopted me, and then we lived in North Idaho for pretty much my whole childhood in this town called Coeur d'Alene, which is up north, right on the Panhandle, really close to Spokane, Washington, which would be the bigger town that people would know of. I lived in that area till I was 18.
From that time at 18, you decided you want to go major in theater.
I don't know what the proper term is. I'm very big though in terms of counting the cost. That's really important to me. So when I decided to go into entertainment, the things I thought about were I'm not going to have financial stability, I'm not going to have job security, and being visually impaired as well, it's going to be harder for me to get opportunities. And so I was very realistic going into the entertainment industry of what those factors were. But then I said to myself, is the cost of trying to pursue this or pursuing this worth it? And at the end of the day, I decided, yeah, I'm willing to accept those terms, even though some of those terms do have their fair share of challenges and struggle that comes with them. But I am willing to accept those factors and I will commit to this. And here I am.
It says a lot about you. I truly mean that.
I appreciate that. I mean, I guess it's just like life experiences, right? That kind of teach us lessons, And I guess one of the lessons that I learned along the way as well that kind of goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about is like I try to live with no regret, and maybe it's like the whole rent thing, like forget regret or life is yours to miss. No day but today. But I'd rather know that I tried, that I knocked on every door, that I went after what I was passionate about. Even if I failed miserably, I still went after it, and there's satisfaction in that rather than sitting back, like 10 years from now and wondering, what would have happened if dot, dot, dot.
Gotten any, any auditions or anything for a character with a visual disability or something like that?
2017 and 2018, I worked with a group called Theater by the Blind that's in the Culver City area. They're under this umbrella company called Arts Up LA. This was a group that was comprised of all blind and low vision performers. We rehearsed a few times a week, and after a few months, we put on full productions. And there were mats on the floor that were textured so that people that were fully blind or even people that were more low vision, maybe, and had a hard time seeing the actual space, they could feel the mats. And then, okay, I traveled to the third mat, and then right up there, I'll find the table. And so it was a really cool experience because that was the first time that I had worked with performers who were fully blind and low vision. Out of that opportunity, I got connected with this group called Film by the Blind. And in that, we all collaborated on writing a short film. We all were actors in that film as well. And during that time, I was also able to direct at the theater that we were doing theater at the blind at. And the producers of that organization helped me produce a show over there, and I was able to direct something. So it did open up a lot of really cool opportunities, honestly, that I don't think I would have been able to experience otherwise. And another opportunity that's been really cool, just helped me be able to connect with other people in the blind and low vision communities on a deeper level, and to share the love of performing arts and film and TV with other people. In fact, last year, a visually impaired friend of mine and me, we actually started a podcast called The Dark Room, where we talk about accessibility and audio description in movies and TV, and just kind of starting to help stimulate those conversations. And once again, these are opportunities I never would have had if it weren't for my disability.
It's an awesome title, The Dark Room, killer double entendre. It's a nice title.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Let's go back to the unfortunate passing of your mom. That's a really tragic situation. Do you mind telling us that story?
Um, so when I was 13, right at the beginning of my freshman year of high school, I was waiting outside one day for my mom after I had auditioned for the fall school musical, actually. I waited out there for hours and she never came. And then I figured something doesn't feel right. I mean, sometimes you just have like that gut feeling that something's a little off. And then later a police car pulled up and I knew that something very bad happened and they delivered the news to me. And I think at the time I was just kind of like shocked because I hadn't had time to it I was just caught off guard. I didn't have any time to process what to expect or anything at all. Definitely a challenging time. And also the same year that we lost my mom, my adopted grandpa, who was like a father figure to me, also passed away as well. There were two significant losses that year. I was in a place though where I didn't know fully how to process my emotions. So I think I was more so just in the mindset of I just got to push on and I just got to move forward and still find a way to continue living my life. And it honestly wasn't until later that I fully allowed myself to grieve the losses of both family members. When I was younger, I don't think I really allowed myself a lot of space to process emotions. My glass was always half full. It was very much like the Annie thing, like, tomorrow, tomorrow, like, I love you tomorrow. And just kind of like, I got to keep it together. I got to put on a happy face. I got to be strong. It wasn't until college, like the end of college, where I really allowed myself to let my emotions be expressed and to feel emotions over so many different things. And I think that's also been helpful in, having a disability and the frustrations that can come with that sometimes is not suppressing those emotions and not telling myself I need to feel differently than the way that I feel, but just allowing them to exist. And then obviously finding ways to work through them and getting to healthy places with how I process and how I express those emotions. It's so important to be able to do that and to feel like you have the space to be able to express whatever emotion, happy, sad, anything.
You were very honest in letting us know that you've also, at times of your life, dealt with some depression and maybe even some suicidal contemplations. How did you get out of those moments? How were you able to pull yourself out of those times?
Yeah, to take it back there, and this kind of is a good piggyback off of the giving yourself the space to express emotions. What brought me to those places initially was the suppression of emotions that I had been bottling up. What it taught me during that time is if you don't deal with your emotions and you just push them down, they are going to catch up with you at some point in time. And so, because I realized I had a lot of unresolved, maybe emotional wounds or just feelings that I never fully processed or never fully expressed, that's what kind of brought me to those places of suicidal ideation and depression. What took me out of those places, though, was the amazing community that I had around me, both when I was in Orange County during college and also when I moved to Los Angeles. And I think that community is so important, and I would even say essential to our life as human beings. Like, we can't do it on our own. having a support system around me that would accept me in the good, in the bad. When sometimes people be like, "Hey, do you want to come hang out?" And I'd be like, "Sure, but I'm not in a good place and I'm not going to be any fun." And they're like, "That's okay, just come hang out with us." Having that support where it's like, we're not going to judge you, we accept you as you are, that's made all the difference in the world. I can't stress the importance of community enough in my life, and hopefully in the lives of others, they've also been able to see how vital that is for our existence as human beings.
Did you find it easy to find community in Los Angeles? Some people find that challenging.
Yeah, when I first moved to LA, I had a few friends that I knew, and I say a few because I didn't really know a whole lot of people, kind of like a foundation to launch from, find friends and to build community pretty quickly. And I am very grateful for that because I do know that is not everyone's experience. And LA can feel very isolating for so many different reasons. So I don't take that for granted in any way.
How has your disability negatively affect you as far as pursuing the industry is concerned?
Getting people to give me an opportunity and to give me a chance and to understand that, yes, I do come from a different walk of life, but that does not mean that I'm incapable. People writing me off came from a lack of understanding just because they probably didn't know anyone who was visually impaired who was in the entertainment industry. They didn't know what to do with that information.
In your time in LA, have you noticed an improvement on disability inclusivity?
Over the years, I have noticed an improvement in disability inclusion and even people being more willing to talk about disability inclusion, learning from other people about what accommodations they might need, how they operate in, different environments and everything. And I do feel like there's a more genuine desire to be inclusive. Do we have a ways to go? Yeah, we do, but I am grateful for the progress that we have made.
So you mentioned accommodations they might need. What are some accommodations that you might need? They're just on a daily basis, whether you're working, whether you're just at home?
The biggest accommodation that is the most helpful for me is having documents that can be read to me with a screen reader. And for those that don't know what screen readers are, it's a voice that reads to you the text that's on the screen. Like, for example, when I get an audition, sometimes unintentionally, I'll get sent sides that are PDFs, and the screen reader isn't always good at reading PDF files. So then I'll have to like send a message back to the casting or to my agent and just ask them to send me like the doc file because the screen reader reads that a lot better.
Lee, have you gone through surgeries for your glaucoma?
Yeah, I have had a few different surgeries. A lot of the surgeries I've had have been to put a little hole into your eye so it can allow fluids to drain to relieve the pressure. So one of the things with glaucoma is that there can be a lot of pressure buildup. You want to keep the pressure low. And so some of the surgeries that I've had have been to create a space for fluids to drain so they don't just build up and sit in behind my eye. So I have had one, two, three, at least three surgeries that they've put a little hole or filter, I guess, in my eye to allow fluids to drain. And then I've also had a retina reattachment surgery in my left eye that happened pretty shortly after I moved to LA, where the doctor just said, "Hey, your retina and your left eye is almost detached. And if you don't get this fixed, you're for sure going to lose your sight." But it is risky too because I have a lot of scar tissue and there's damage to my optic nerves. So they're like, this could expedite, vision loss. This could get, a big infection that could result from this. And there were risk factors involved in it too. So ultimately, I did end up doing it. But it was a little scary because I was like, if I wake up and I don't have vision left, how does that change my life? And I had to be very realistic about what are the potential outcomes And am I ready to accept any of those outcomes before I went through the retina reattachment surgery? I needed to be at peace with whatever the outcome was. So if it was the worst case scenario, I wasn't surprised then. I was prepared, even though that will come with its own set of challenges, and I wouldn't love it, but I at least wanted to be at a place of peace about whatever outcome happened.
Do you go see films in the theater, or is that not really just a pleasurable experience for you?
That's such a good question as well. So I am in addition to being a very big theater buff, which I probably see, I don't know, somewhere between 50 to 70 live theater productions every year. I probably see over 100 movies in the theater every year as well. Like I'm a very big movie buff. I try to keep up on a lot of the movies, not only the big blockbuster movies, but the small indie films. And that's why, to me, audio description is so crucial to my enjoyment of film. And I'm really glad that the majority of films now have audio description. It's always disappointing though when I get to a theater and there's a smaller indie film that maybe didn't have the budget for that, and so they don't have audio description. Then it's a matter of, do I still want to watch this, or do I just leave and count my losses? But I'm usually someone who's like, well, I'll stay and I'll pick up what I can get from the dialogue of the film and what small limited vision I do have, and then I'll go home and look up a Wikipedia summary or a movie summary to fill in the gaps of what I missed. If I go to a new theater, I'll always talk to the manager in a very nice way and say, just wanted to encourage you to make sure that all of your employees are on the same page about what an audio description device is and how to program it properly in case other people come in and need that. And I try to do it in a very kind way, but I also just realize sometimes the reason that accommodations may not happen in the way that they should, or the reason that people may feel neglected in the blind or low vision communities, is because people don't have the education to know what is needed. And so I just try to be a voice now to help people get educated, because the truth of the matter is, we only know what we know, right? If I talk to someone who's never had any interaction with a visually impaired or blind person, I can't expect them to know what I need. I can't expect them to know how to guide me somewhere, or what to say to me, or what accommodations I need. But what I can do is I can help them learn, given that they're open to it. I always try to offer people a level of grace where there might be an understanding gap, but I'm also like, let's bridge the gap too.
I love that you see so many plays. That's just so cool. You see so much live theater.
Yeah, I just love live theater. I just love being in the room where there's an audience and there's performers on stage. It's a magical experience. And even if I lost all of my vision at some point in time, I think I would still go, just because there's nothing more thrilling than the live experience of sharing the journey of an actor and an audience together and feeling that momentum and feeling that energy.
Do you see smaller sized plays too, like smaller houses, or do you mainly see larger touring productions? What do you find yourself going to see?
I try to hit the whole gambit. I mean, last year I was even hitting up, like some high school and college productions of college and high schools that I knew no one in. But, I just think it's great to support the arts. And there's oftentimes some really solid talent and, educational theater as well. And then, I'll hit up, some little black box theaters here and there as well. And I think the challenge of it, obviously, is that theater is not cheap. And so I always am looking for discounts and ways to get tickets for an economical value.
It's all about that rush, like you said, for Broadway shows or whatever, right? It's all about rushing for cheap tickets.
Exactly. The thing about it too is, like, deals do exist. So it's not impossible. You may have to do a little bit of a deeper dive to find them. But if you look hard enough, you can usually find a deal somewhere.
Was it always going to be LA for you, or did you consider New York or any other town?
When I was in college, my dream was to move to New York. Like, I love New York and I wanted to live there. I wanted to work in the Broadway or off Broadway communities. And just as circumstances happened, it never worked out that I was able to move over to New York. But, now, honestly, I really do enjoy LA. And last time I was in New York, it was like, in like 30-degree weather. And I just kept thinking, like, taking the metro in 30-degree weather just to get to a doctor's appointment or walking back with groceries or like all of these other things that just seem so not fun when, there's like hail and snow and rain outside. Like, I'm like, I'm good with sunny LA weather because I think that the best part of LA for someone that doesn't drive is that the weather is nice year round. Obviously, we have our little rainy spells, but overall, the weather is great. And so when I'm walking around town and everything, I still can do that like year round without having to worry about like extreme weather conditions.
What kind of stuff have you done for fun around town outside of your career?
I do like outdoor stuff. I wouldn't say that I'm like the outdoors guru or anything, but I love trying new coffee shops. I'm a very big coffee person, so I love like just seeing like the ambiance and just like comparing the different coffee shops, and new ones are constantly springing up. I'm a big like board game person, which is very interesting. Playing board games as a visually impaired person, there are ways to do it, but it usually requires my friends to like help accommodate me in various ways. We have to modify things a little bit, not modify the rules, just like if I need something read to me or how we're going to read certain things or do certain things visually.
Okay, so what board game are you playing and what are you drinking from the coffee shop?
Favorite board game is Settlers of Catan. That's been a long time favorite of mine. I just like the strategy and everything in it. And that's also the game that can get me really fired up and make me really angry. I'm also a very big poker player. I love poker.
Love poker, Lee. I love poker.
Yeah, we should play sometime.
I've been playing this game called Baloutro. You heard of this? I may be mispronouncing it, but it's called Baloutro. But it's like this poker roguelite. Have you heard of roguelite video games?
Yes, I have heard of them.
Okay, so Baloutro is a poker roguelite, and I've been all into it the last couple of days.
Totally. It's like such an adrenaline rush when like, especially like hold up, you get your two cards and it's like opening up a Christmas present, and it's like that adrenaline rush and that anticipation of, ooh, what's it going to be this time? You always like hope that it's going to be something really great. And then you look at your cards and it's like 2-7 and you're like,
and it's cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I miss playing. I used to play often. I used to play around, of course, I used to play online. I used to play in the card rooms around LA. I used to play in Vegas. I mean, not professionally or anything, but I used to play often for fun and stuff.
Yeah, it's great. Did you ever have any like big wins with it?
I mean, I did. I mean, nothing crazy, but I mean, I did. But one time I was involved in a jackpot hand, which is kind of cool at it was Hollywood Park Casino. I think that's not even there anymore. Cause what's there now? It's like, where the new Clippers arena is going in, and then what's the new one? I guess the football stadium, SoFi or whatever. But there used to be a card room right there, whether or not it still is, called Hollywood Park Casino. And it was like a bad beat jackpot. Something like aces full of kings getting beat by four of a kind or something crazy like that. You had to meet these certain requirements. And me and this other dude were in this heads up showdown, and we met the requirements. So the whole table got paid. I think the whole table split like 20 grand or something like that.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that so much. And then in terms of coffee drinks, I feel like my go-to default is probably like the white chocolate mocha anywhere that they have one of those. But the question that I always ask the baristas when I go to a new coffee shop is, what are the most popular drinks? What are the most unique drinks that are specific to this coffee shop? I'm a big fan of lavender lattes too.
That sounds delicious.
I just recently in like 2021 became a big football fan, which was very off-brand for me. But
how do you all of a sudden become a football fan?
So here's what happened. So like I joined, one of my friends was doing a fantasy football league, and he asked me if I wanted to join because he needed one other person. And I said, I have no interest in football at all. I don't know anything about this game. Go ask other people. And if you really need someone to support you, I'll do it just to try something new. So a week later, he comes back to me. He wasn't able to find anyone. I did it on my initial like fantasy football draft day. I literally had no clue what I was doing. And my friend basically drafted my team for me. But then because I'm a competitive person and I want to win, I just did a compressed amount of research and just started keeping up with everything. And in probably like 3 months, I could have very in-depth conversations with anyone on football teams, football players, the way the game is played. I'm a very all-in person. So when I throw myself into something, I'm like all in on it,
The degree all in moment.
Exactly. And so now I'm, like, I'll watch football games by myself. And if no one's home, I'll just turn on a game. And the great thing about football games, too, for someone that's visually impaired is the commentators are always commenting. So you can, as long as you know what the game is and you know the players, you're able to follow the game. You're able to follow the action of the game. I mean, it's probably even better listening to it like on a radio broadcast because you get way more commentary there than you do on television. But there's just something that feels very like you're a part of something when you're watching it rather than just listening to it too.
So what team do you like?
I'm an LA Rams fan, I would say.
Nice.
Like, that's my team right now.
Whether or not it's allowed, I'm a Rams and a Chargers fan because I actually grew up in San Diego, so I was already a Chargers fan. It's one of these things. I'm also a Padres Dodgers fan. So what are you going to say? I mean, people say you're not allowed to do that. They're in the same division. At least the Rams and Chargers are in different conferences. Padres and Dodgers are in the same dang division, What are you going to do, dude? I'm a fan of both. I grew up in San Diego. I've lived in LA for 20 years.
I think in the zeitgeist of life, I think that there is room to be fans of both, regardless of what people say, you do you like what you like and own it, right?
Thank you. What would you advise someone who's kind of like in your shoes, but a younger version of you and just kind of struggling with their disability, especially? What would you advise that person?
First of all, know that your disability does not define you. Yes, it is a part of you, and it's probably a significant part of who you are, but there's so much more to your composition and to your makeup as a human being than just your disability. And your disability is also not the thing that defines your worth and your value. I guess I would just encourage them to know that what sometimes can feel like a curse can also be a blessing in disguise if you, depending on your perspective, that it's all a matter of perspective. And it's not always easy to choose a different perspective, and I acknowledge that, but it is possible. And once you choose that different perspective of realizing that in the midst of having a disability, there's things about that make you very unique and make your story and your life very beautiful in ways that maybe other people may not be able to, that set you apart. I guess I would also say to someone, just own who you are, be proud of who you are, because you do have a lot to offer, and just kind of realizing that everyone has something to offer. Your disability doesn't disqualify you from having a lot to offer.
Very beautifully said, Lee, especially what you mentioned about perspective. Lee, I know how difficult it is to be an artist and to do what we do. The fact that you do it with a visual disability, kudos. Mad round of applause, Lee. I have so much respect for you, my friend.
Appreciate that. I have a lot of respect for you, especially you doing this podcast and you creating awareness about disability as well. I think it's so crucial because that's the way that people are going to learn. That's the way that perspective shifts, and that's the way that the understanding gap gets closed in. So thank you for the work you're doing as well.
Hey, my pleasure. We're just telling stories and letting people tell stories, but I think that's important, right? I don't know. There's something I love about that, and I think that other folks agree that that's an important thing that we do.
Absolutely.
Especially when they're stories that might not otherwise be told. That's kind of the big asterisk, Yes, hearing stories is great, but these stories are perhaps stories that you might not hear otherwise. That's why it's important.
100%. And going back to that really quick, one last thing I'll say is that's why doing the Easterseals Disability Film Challenge is so significant too for everyone, is that this year you had 135 stories that are centered around characters with disabilities that probably wouldn't get told if it weren't for the existence of this film challenge. It's beautiful. And I think that once again, kind of partnering with what you're doing as well, it's creating that awareness and opening up people's eyes and getting them to be introduced to other walks of life that maybe they would never see otherwise.
And guys, I'm going to link the audio description, Easterseals Disability Film Challenge, in the show notes. I'll also link the Dark Room podcast. You can check it out. You can check out Lee's Instagram, Lee Pugsley LA. His X/Twitter is Lee Pugsley. He is incredible. It's so nice to chat with you. And you know what? I truly mean this. You and I could chill and talk Broadway all night long. I truly mean that, Lee.
Anytime you want to do that, I'm game.